Hello, it's Rebecca here from Precious Pages Papercraft, and today I'm designing a layout for Papermaze, and I'm working with the Simple Vintage Seas collection from Simple Stories. I've absolutely adored working with this collection. It's just so beautiful, and I recently went on a day out with my little boy and we went on a little sailboat, which was really cool, just the two of us. So I've got a photo of him at the helm with the old wheel, looking very important. And that was perfect for this collection, so I'm going to scrap that today. And I've used one of the chipboard frames to house my photo, so it's one of the ship's wheel, which is obviously very fitting. And so for my design today, I kind of had an idea in my mind of having some vertical kind of strips of paper coming down the page, each one sort of slightly longer than the next one. So I've picked out 5 patterned papers and I'm cutting some strips from them. So they are 2 inches wide, and starting from the one on the left end, so that one is 3 inches long, then the next one is 4, and then 5, 6, and the last one is 7 inches long. And I have to say, in my head, this looked slightly better than it did on paper, only because in reality, once it was on the paper, I wished I'd done the strips slightly longer. So I absolutely adore white space on a layout, but it has to be white space that works. And I felt like this wasn't white space on my page. This was just empty space, and it wasn't really working for me. But rather than waste these strips and start again, I do kind of come up with a workaround that you'll see in a bit. But in hindsight, I probably would have made each of these strips a little bit longer. So maybe started with 4 inches and gone 5, 6, 7, 8, just to stretch the design down the page a little bit more. But anyway, you live and learn, don't you? So I've cut these strips now. I'm distressing all the edges of them, just roughing them up with an edge distresser. If you don't have one of these tools, then the edge of a scissor blade works just as well. And that just gives a nice texture to the edges, and it's just something I really like to do. So you can see I've got my strips along the top there. I am going to run each of those through my sewing machine in a second. There we go. Skipped through that for you because staring at the top of my machine is no fun. So yeah, I've used a white running stitch around the edge of each one, and then I'm going to add some craft foam behind those to raise them up and bring in a little bit of dimension. And this is just cheap craft foam from Amazon, and it's adhesive on one side. So I'm just going to apply some double-sided tape to the other side, and then those will stick straight down on my layout. And there we go, so I skipped through that. It did take me a little while just to get them all lined up, and I drew myself a little pencil line to make sure they were straight. But I've lowered them from the top of the page a little bit. I did want a little strip of white above them. I didn't want them coming from the edge of the paper, so there's a little bit, probably only a centimetre or so, and that would just give me a nice white frame around the edge of the strips. And then my photo, obviously housed in that chipboard frame, I'm going to have sitting over on the right there. And I really struggled with position of this. I didn't want it so far down the page that it covered the bottom of those paper strips. But I felt like having it too far up, it was all that empty space at the bottom was really bugging me. So it does take me a little while to decide what I'm going to do with this design. I do chop the little lighthouse off the edge of that frame. Now, if my mum's watching this, she's probably having kittens right now and going mad because she loves lighthouses. But the little phrase on it was "on island time," which would work perfectly for 99% of my photos because they will all be taken on the Isle of Wight, but this one wasn't, so I just felt like that sentiment didn't work. And I wanted a little sailboat there instead of a lighthouse, so I've chopped that off. And I'm going to replace it with a sailboat from one of the die cut packs, and then a little banner that says "Let's Sail Away." So it's actually the same style as the Island Time one, but it just says "Let's Sail Away" instead, which I felt worked much better for my page. So at the moment you can see I've got a Bramble Fox perspective in place over on the right hand side there, "Set Sail," and I was going to use that as my title. And I do end up moving it a couple of times and I just couldn't make it work. I think it was because it was white, and where I wanted my title to be, it wouldn't have shown up very well on the white background. So I end up swapping that out in a minute. But you'll see me kind of faff about here, trying to build some clusters, trying to make this design work. And in reality, it probably was working. It's just that space at the bottom was bugging me. Like I said, it looked too empty. It needed something. So until I've got that sorted, it was like a mental block. I couldn't carry on with the rest of the embellishing because it just wasn't looking right or sitting right or coming together right. And I decided in the end just to turn the camera off, get the bottom of this page sorted, and then come back to it. And you can see here I'm moving things around lots, trying to make it work. And I think in the end, when I turned the camera off, I did actually go out. I took my little boy down to the park for a couple of hours with his stomp rocket, and then came back to it and built some strips at the bottom of the page. Then when that was done, I was a lot happier, and then the embellishing was working sort of more free-flowing, and I wasn't having to think about it quite so much. Sometimes when you get a mental block, it is better to just walk away and come back to it. And it's nothing to do with the products or the collection or anything, because I absolutely adore working with this collection. It really was just the bottom half of that page was bugging me. So I'm persevering for now, just pulling out some little bits from the chipboard sheet here that I want to use on my layout, going through the collection, just pulling out little things that work, sort of sailboats and anchors and ship wheels. And my little boy's hand there, he was actually looking for the lobster in this collection. So he saw this collection on my desk a couple of weeks ago, and he's obsessed with crabs and lobsters, and he saw that there was a lobster. And he's looking for it now. You can see he's going through all the packs with me, pointing at everything, trying to find it. So I actually have to stop designing to find him the lobster. And then he's happy and he goes away. And he comes back and the lobster's trying to eat me and all sorts. But yeah, he's had his eye on that lobster since I first opened this collection. So yeah, I've probably lost that lobster now. That's probably his and long gone, bless him. But yeah, you can see now I am moving on to the bottom of this page. So I've decided that I'm going to replicate those strips that I've got at the top at the bottom, but on a smaller scale. So they're still going to be 2 inches wide, but I'm going to have them a lot shorter because I don't want them to sort of meet in the middle. And obviously I'm going to start the opposite way round. So at the top I've got the shorter one on the left, at the bottom I'm going to have the shorter one on the right. And I was concerned that if I did them the same length, then the middle strip, because they would both be the same length, they would end up meeting in the middle, and I really didn't want that. So I cut them a bit shorter and get them all in place. Some little lobsters back again. And then I actually do decide to make them even shorter. So it gives me a nice white space in the middle, but it doesn't make it so that the page looks bare or empty or unfinished. So I'm just cutting these strips again, and then I think this is probably where I leave it, take Riley to the park for a bit, and then come back and finish the layout off then. So there we go, we are back from the park, and you can see I've now changed my title out. So instead of the white set sail perspective, I'm using a navy blue anchors away, and I think it looks much nicer. It's a much bolder colour on the page. It shows up against the white background, and I just think it works really nicely with the colours in the pattern papers. So yeah, that's going to be under the ship's wheel now in that white space, which is initially where I wanted my title. I've decided to add in some die cut seaweed foliage over on the right hand side of my photo there. Just felt like I needed something around that edge of the photo. So the large dark blue one there is from the die cut pack, and then the smaller turquoisey one, that is from the sticker book. So I'm just backing it onto some white cardstock just to make it a bit more rigid, and just so that it can lay out on top of the dark blue one. I'm going to raise that up on foam. And just like the way that looks. And then I've got this little chipboard like life buoy ring, whatever you call them, and it's got Wave Runner written on it. And I was so desperate to get this on the page, and you'll see it gets moved around so much until I can find a place to put it. But it was really bugging me because I really wanted to use it and I just couldn't find the perfect spot for it. But I am going to persevere with it. Working on that cluster up in the top now, I've got a little anchor from the die cut pack, and then a chipboard piece that says Ahoy Matey, and I've raised those up on foam at the top there and layered them. I've added a couple of oars behind my photo up on the left hand side, and then I'm going to build a little cluster down the bottom as well. Because my design is very heavy on the top right hand corner, I wanted something down the bottom left to balance it out. So again, I've reached for that sticker book, and I've pulled out a like banner sticker. It's got a little ship on it and an anchor. Again, I've backed that with some white cardstock to make it sturdy, and I'm going to use a die cut ship. I've got a little sailboat. What else have I got? Oh, and a little tab I've pulled out that says sailing, nice red tag. So I'm just going to layer those up. I'm going to fold that red tab or ticket, I'm not really sure, I think it is like a ticket stamp. I'm going to fold that in half and just put glossy accents along the fold so that I can turn the edges up for a bit of dimension down in that corner. Normally I would have stitched through that, but I've already put my sewing machine away, so I couldn't be bothered to get it all back out. So that's that cluster down the bottom, sort of sorted for now. I'm getting my title stuck in place with glossy accents, and I've added another little anchor next to that as well. But I felt like I needed a little bit of red to the left of my photo, so I've got the red pattern paper on the right hand side of it, but there isn't an awful lot of red over on the left. So again, I've used one of the smaller seaweed stickers from the sticker book, added it onto cardstock again, and then raised that up on foam. Still trying to find a spot for that wave runner. Keep swapping it around, and in the end I decide I'm going to stick it in that gap just there, and I put some glossy accents on it and stick it down before I change my mind again. And I've stuck the little white perspective Bramble Fox sailboat over on the right underneath my photo. It's on top of the red pattern paper, so that shows up nicely. I was just with my title there because there was a lot of spacing in the letters. I think the title was just getting lost in the pattern of that red paper, whereas the sailboat, because it's a bit more solid, kind of sticks out a bit more. And then I'm just adding some little word stickers from the sticker book. So I've got 3 on my photo. It says sail, ahoy matey, and on the water. Then I've added one down the bottom with that cluster that says hold on tight, which I thought was quite funny, and another one up the top that says all hands on deck. And then I'm just going to finish the layout off with some white splatters. I don't know why, but I always like white splatters for a sort of a nautical or a beachy sea layout. Maybe it just reminds me of sea foam or something, but it's great for snow, and I love it on sea layouts as well. So that's just watered down white gesso and just using a paintbrush to splatter that on. And that is me finished. So I'll give you a quick close-up, and there'll be some close-up photos at the end. But thank you very much for joining me. I hope you've enjoyed this layout and the process, and it's given you some inspiration. I'll pop a link in the description box below to the Papermaze store. This collection is still in stock. I know some of it has sold out now, but a lot of it is still there, so do head on over and take a look. But thanks very much for joining me, and I'll see you next time.